Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here at India Day in the middle of UNGA Week. Well, first of all, let me just start on behalf of the Gates Foundation with enormous thanks to the Consul General, to ORF, to the Reliance Foundation, our UN partners, for making this day possible, and in particular for making such a rich conversation about how we continue to make progress in this moment, a featured part of the discussion. I guess I would start by affirming where we were early this morning. It has been an incredible couple of decades of progress, not just in India, but around the world. When we think about the SDGs, there's so much to be proud of. We have halved the number of children who die before their 5th birthday. We have dramatically increased the number of people who have access to financial inclusion. We have done that by working in solidarity together and with remarkable leadership at the country level. So nowhere is that progress more clear than in India, of course. When you think about access to digital finance, when I was last in India, the simple access to credit of smallholder farmers was remarkable. The language, the ease of use, the ease of interaction was just in a different galaxy than we might have imagined when we started this work together. If you think about health innovations, basic sort of AI-enabled ultrasound, extending the reach of diagnostic care to pregnant women in rural areas. We talk about progress in the macroeconomic indicators, and that is important. That's what politicians need to talk about, but the impact on human lives is what motivates me and what motivates us at the foundation, and it's nowhere more clear, I think, than in India. You've done that by, of course, being sort of first in class on technology, whether it's Aadhaar or the application of AI, but actually keeping equity at the center of that. And I think that combination of technology and equity is one that has been core to who we are and how we work, and we've learned a lot about that from working with you in India. But this is not a time to just celebrate progress and go home, because too much of that progress is threatened. When we look just across town here, when we look at our work in Africa and other parts of Asia, we see many threats to that progress. Top of the list for many countries is the reshaping of the aid environment, the cuts to aid that we've seen from the US, from the UK. It's no longer a critical part of India's story. That's been part of your progress and growth, but for many countries, that aid supports significant parts of healthcare systems, education systems. And that means we will have to rethink what's possible and how to make progress in health. But we also see threats on the front of trust and connectedness in society, whether that's trust in vaccines, whether that's trust in government. We're finding that many of the institutions that have been critical to the development story are having to defend their motives, explain themselves, and do that in an information environment that can quickly be crowded and critical. And so both on the social front and the financial front, I feel we're at a moment where a lot of the progress we've made in the past 2 decades is under threat. So what are we going to do about that, and how do the lessons from India help us think about that now? So the first for me is we at the Gates Foundation are committed to defending the institutions and the structures that we believe work. We know that a strong primary healthcare system is absolutely essential for everything else to build on. You all have done that and proven that and continue to expand that in India. We also know Gavi and the Global Fund are critical highly efficient mechanisms to channel funding to reach millions of people with vaccines, with malaria treatments, with TB treatments and prevention that are still essential. So we need to defend what we believe works. Second, we need to evolve. The aid system of the post-war era doesn't reflect, the world we live in today. How do we lean on the G20? How do we lean on coalitions of the willing, ASEAN, to be leaders on the issues that we care about, where there is consensus and progress to be made? To give you an example, actually starting with the Indian G20, having DPI, a digital public infrastructure, at the core of the G20 agenda has been an absolutely critical way to advance country after country's thinking and adoption of what really is the roads and infrastructure of the modern economy, right? Digital infrastructure. So that leadership, the channel of the G20, has been essential. So we have to adapt. There is no defending without also evolution to stay relevant. And finally, I'll come back to where I was a few minutes ago. I think being clear on the values, for us, that combination of innovation, forward-leaning on innovation, combined with the prioritization of equity, is something India is getting right and that we believe needs to be part of how we approach development in the years ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. Deputy CGI, Mr. Shombi Sharp, UN Resident Coordinator, Mr. Sharon and his team from the ORF, Reliance Foundation guys, ladies and gentlemen. Leave no one behind, as they say, 2030 Sustainable Development Goal Agenda. So women, in developing countries like mine, obviously cannot be left behind. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have done and what we're going to do, because that will, the progress on the SDGs would depend on what we are doing with women and children, women especially, because children would be automatically taken care of. 2023 G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration, where one of the critical groups, for the first time under our Honorable Prime Minister's leadership, we got the G20 to form a group, Empowerment of Women Working Group, EWWG, to focus on women's priorities, the issues in a very, very focused manner by the top 20 economies of the world. And the mantra of women-led development, where women are not merely kind of recipients of development benefits, but they actually drive the development agenda. It is their gender concerns which actually inform all the decisions, all the policies. So this is a transformative change, that is coming about in India in the last 1 decade and going forward. I can give you major examples. Of course, we have had the affirmative action in the form of at least 1/3 of the representatives from the grassroots, village level, district level, rural local bodies, as well as urban municipal bodies, being from women only. And now I can inform you that out of 3.1 million such representatives who actually take decisions, who have funds and who have resources at their command, at the local, municipal or the rural level, 46% of them are women already. It's about 1.4 million. So it's a massive number where, women leaders have come up from the grassroots. Then in 2023, we had this legislation where now in lawmaking also, in parliament, as well as in the state legislative assemblies, we'll have 1/3 women representatives compulsorily by affirmative action through law is been ensured. And after the census, which is ongoing, delimitation would take place and we'll have the, 1/3 of the seats rotationally reserved for women. I think that's going to be a very, very big change. I'm not sure many countries have that kind of legislation or even reality. Maximum 15-20% is the representations that women have generally in parliaments and the legislative assemblies. Then gender budgeting. union, federal, the gender budget, you would be glad to know, is now touching $51 billion USD annual. And about $45 billion from the states. So it's a huge amount of money which is going straight for women-centric schemes, women-centric issues for their education, health, training, self-employment, and all those areas. And of course, obviously for the other general budget, they are very much, part of the recipients. About participation of women in labor force, we are now, jacking up the game. A few years ago, the participation number used to be around 20 odd percent. Now it is 41%. We are going for, big time public investment as well as catalyzing private investment in crashes, in working women hostels, in care economy, in saturation of essential services like affordable housing, incentivizing women's property ownership, universal health coverage for women and children, their linkage to credit, insurance, banking services, multiple schemes at targeted, levels, they are ongoing. May I give you some data points? You might have heard about them, but they are very, very big, powerful indicators to show, so much has been achieved to reduce drudgery and time poverty that women in general all over the world and especially in developing countries that they undergo. About 103 million clean cooking gas connections have been given in last 10 years. 155 million household safe tap drinking water connections have been given. About 118 million household toilets have been constructed. 314 million women have been taken into formal financial systems through, opening bank accounts, through insurance schemes. More than 40 million all-weather Pakka houses have been constructed in last 10 years. We have supported more than 40 million women through cash benefits for, pregnancy, related and childbearing related issues. 41 million bank accounts with very high returns for investing in girls' future, they have been opened. We are tracking on real-time basis through digital interventions, Poshan Tracker and PMMVY online system, more than 90 million women and children's health, nutrition, and other, indicators on a regular basis. So this has helped in, allowing us to go to the next stage of emancipation and empowerment of women. Then for entrepreneurship, multiple schemes like Mudra Yojanas, I think somebody must have talked about it. More than about 75% of the beneficiaries, they are women, and they have collateral-free microcredit facilities up to approximately $22,000 each. We have schemes for very poor street hawkers where, about half of them are women, and 1.6 billion USD worth loans, practically all collateral-free, have been given. Schemes like Stand Up India for middle-level entrepreneurs, where 84% of the credit has gone to women. So all these, and then we have a huge, very ambitious program in the rural areas called self-help group programs of National Rural Livelihood Mission, where more than 9 million self-help groups, each consisting of about 10 to 12 members, have been constituted. About 100 million women. They are now very confident leaders at the local level. They enjoy a tremendous amount of economic, financial, and digital agency at the local level. They have become leaders. As far as law is concerned, yes, I think everybody knows that our constitution bars any kind of discrimination on the basis of gender. As soon as we became independent, we allowed full universal adult enfranchisement. There was no ifs and buts or gradual, kind of progress as it happened in many developed countries. Women had, from the day one, full voting and other political rights. Any kind of violence, any kind of discrimination or barriers against women, there are specific laws protecting them. We have a very powerful instrument called Nirbhaya Fund, where more than $1.5 billion USD we have invested in last about 7-8 years. Various women-centric projects for the safety and security of girls and women, they have been taken up on pilot basis and now they are being scaled up. We have created institutions like one-stop centers. About 850 of them are already operational in the country and more will be in the offing, where any woman suffering from any kind of violence or threat of violence in a family situation or workplace situation, she can come there and get all kinds of services, medical, legal, psychological, even temporary stay and other support at one place. Doesn't have to go anywhere else. We have now universalized the Women Helpline 181 throughout the country. It's connected to the 112 service like 911 here in the US. So any woman, anytime, any problem, just dial 181 and the problem will be taken care of. The help, the resources would arrive. Similarly, in criminal administration system, special laws and special procedures have been laid down so that women don't have to unnecessarily go through the rigmarole and the tortuous process of criminal administration system through police stations and investigating agencies. So many facilitative rules have been now framed and implemented. We have about 14,500 women help desks. There are about 18,000 police stations in the country. So almost all of them are covered. Special anti-human trafficking units are there in all districts, and anti-human trafficking laws have been strengthened over a time. Now they are part of the organized crime where bail is almost impossible and long-term incarceration is kind of assured. Special courts are there to take care of crimes against young children, girls and women. And then of course we talk about the digital public infrastructure that India has built over a period of time, Aadhaar, UPI, and the JAM Trinity. So various schemes, various policy initiatives, they are now being driven and implemented through these digital interventions, where we believe that ghost beneficiaries, duplicate beneficiaries, or ineligible beneficiaries are taken care of. They are out of the system. And the benefits reach and empower the genuine beneficiaries straight away. So I reaffirm on behalf of Government of India, the ideal Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, that is one earth, one family, one future, which has guided our G20 presidency and continues to inspire us now for a just, inclusive, sustainable world where nobody is left behind. Obviously, no woman is left behind. Empowering them at the last mile is not merely a challenge to be met, it's actually now a great opportunity that we are ensuring that no one shall be left behind. Jai Hind, and thank you so much.
Welcome to all of the panelists. And so I think for this final session, I know we're standing between you and lunch, but I promise that this is going to be a very engaging discussion, and also the lunch is also worth waiting for. So in this panel, we're going to be talking about the importance of focusing on women's empowerment. Women are a key catalyst for change, and as we've been talking about throughout this these discussions today, focusing on women-led development is going to be a key pillar of how we achieve the SDGs. So I'm really delighted to have such esteemed panelists to come and join me in this conversation. We're going to be looking at how innovative approaches to women's and girls' empowerment can help drive transformative outcomes and help accelerate our progress towards the SDGs over the next few years. And looking at what are some of the scalable models and innovations that we can take from India, also from other countries around the world. What can we learn from each other? What are some of the challenges that we need to overcome? And also, what is the role of partnerships? Before we begin, I'll also just like to share just a few quick insights from the work that we do in Reliance Foundation on women's empowerment. Women's empowerment has always been a key focus area for our work since the foundation was established in 2010, and something that Mrs. Ambani is personally very passionate about. So it very much runs through all of our work. We have a number of sort of key initiatives that we're focusing on at the moment. We have a partnership with the Gates Foundation, where we're working together on empowering 1 million women entrepreneurs across India, working together with SHGs and the SRLMs, and helping women become Lakpati Didi, so to be able to increase their income to 1 lakh per annum, and very much working with the women at the SHG level as that sort of key lever of change. We're also working together with Niti Aayog and the Women's Entrepreneurship Platform, where we're doing some pilot initiatives around strengthening women Kirana workers and helping them with enhancing their business skills and their digital and financial literacy. We're also very much sort of focusing on the importance of strengthening women leaders in the social sector. And we have a partnership together with Vital Voices, and I think we have some of our partners here today, where we have a Women Leaders India Fellowship, where we're helping to strengthen women leaders who are working in the social sector. And I think we have a couple in the audience today. And finally, I think we're also very much working on education as well, and working in the space of early childhood. And there we're doing a lot of work with helping to strengthen the capacity of Anganwadi workers to be able to deliver early childhood education. So those are just a few insights from some of our work, and now we'd love to hear more from all of you. We're also going to end the session with a few quick interventions from a few experts on women in the age of AI, but we'll come back to that in a moment. I'd like to start with Mr. Malik, just building on what you were sharing with us in your keynote address. And I'll start with two questions. It would be great to hear from you more around how is India foregrounding women's leadership at the levels of governance to catalyze change at the last mile and ensure women's voices and participation in the decision-making process. You talked about the importance that India is placing on women-led development, so it'd be great to hear more on that. And secondly, what are some of the major schemes that are being implemented by your ministry to enhance digital literacy of women, and what changes have these brought in the lives of women, especially in rural areas?
Thank you. Yeah, I briefly touched upon this point of bottoms of leadership, where already for last several decades we have had the constitutional amendment where at least 1/3 of the representative for rural level institutions, political institutions, and also for the municipal level political institutions, there'll be women. And actually now number is more than 40%, both in municipal levels as well as rural levels. And the total counts to millions. We have 275,000 odd rural local bodies and about 5,000 odd municipal bodies in our country. So you can imagine every one of them has 10, 20 members, and almost half of them are women. So number comes to 1.5 million. And so this is it's been there for 3 decades now, and these local bodies have a lot of powers in education, drinking water, sanitation, in issues of health, literacy, all these things. So they take decisions at the local level, and obviously then gender lens is always kind of there. The gender concerns are taken care of. And now, of course, we have this fundamental, constitutional amendment which will be implemented, I think, in a few years' time, where at least 1/3 of the, leaders who make law decisions, major decisions about the country, they'll be women. So these are, I would say, fundamental changes. Various kinds of research, has shown that even in the earlier rural village level changes or the municipal level changes, wherever women have got the leadership, there the budgets have gone more for health, education, sanitation, all these issues which are basic to human progress and to, future of of my country. So less corruption, more responsive to citizens' needs. So all these things, we are going to ensure in times to come. I think the second question was about financial inclusion, was it?
The second question was, what are some of the major schemes that are being implemented by your ministry on digital literacy, and what changes have these brought to the lives of women?
Okay. So, digital literacy, of course, the cell phone revolution is now almost universal all over the world. So that itself, is a major emancipating tool where internet connectivity, the data is very cheap in our country, and it is leveling out the digital divide big time. We have now the UPI system, Unified Payments Interface, where all the major banks of the country, they are connected to your bank account, and all the sellers, small sellers, big sellers, hawkers, everybody is on the system. You can make payments even up to 1 cent digitally straight away, and within no time lost. And there are almost zero transaction costs. So this is a big success, which is now being exported to several other countries in the world. We have in my own ministry, we have the Portion Tracker, where we track the daily and the monthly progress of various health, nutrition, and education parameters of young children up to 6 years, and of pregnant women and lactating mothers. So we have also various digital literacy programs covering more than 65 million rural households. There are about 500,000 common citizen service centers, which do a lot of G2C, government to citizen services, about 400 services. Some states give 500 or some give 300 services of everyday need, welfare schemes, education, telemedicine, travel bookings, utility payments, social welfare, many, many things. So this is enabling women to take, benefit and advantage, to come out and to manage things and, to be independent in their own way. We are also running through the Anganwadi system. We have this biggest childcare network in the world. 1.4 million of them are there in our country. We call them Anganwadis. I mean, like courtyard, care centers, we can call them in English. So we are running the early childhood care and education program digitally through them, where we provide the videos and the prompts every day through the Portion Tracker, where smartphone is there with the Anganwadi worker. She can project it on a screen also, and she knows through what activity, play-based or experiential kind of, game, young children have to be taught. Week-wise, day-wise program is given. And we run this program digitally. There is no kind of formal teaching, nothing, It's toys, local materials, no cost. So all these initiatives, then there are multiple initiatives by the Education Ministry, which are there to completely digitize learning, education, research, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think now, building on the point of digital and then moving on to financial, I'll turn to you, Lauren. A 2024 World Bank report highlights that nations with higher rates of female financial inclusion experience higher GDP growth rates, with reduced income inequality and increased resilience against economic shocks. What are some of the ways in which the World Bank is helping to support women's financial inclusion in different countries, including India?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having all of us here today for such an important conversation. The World Bank Group, our mission is very clear. It's to alleviate poverty on a livable planet. But what you can't do is leave 50% of people on the sidelines. That means that we need to make sure that all people are free from poverty on a livable planet. And where does that start? For us, that starts with jobs. So I don't want to go too statistic heavy, but since 1990, 53% of women are in the workforce versus 80% of men. That tells you something. It tells you that we have a lot of work to do. And it means that 710 million women globally, because of childcare and family issues, are not participating in the economy. They're not they're lacking financial inclusion, but broader than that, I want to touch on something you said, which is they're lacking digital inclusion. Digital inclusion in 2025 is a basic human right. It is the same as water and shelter and food because it's how we bank, it's how we get educated, it's how we receive healthcare, and it's how we stay connected to one another during some of the most challenging times in our world. So we need to make sure that women are a part of that solution. They need to be building it from the ground up. This is not something that should be done folded into. Women should be central and a part of everything that we do. At the World Bank, we take that incredibly seriously. I am 2.5 months into the World Bank, so if you see me looking down, it's because, well, I am new to this organization. I spent 12 years working for the largest telecommunications company in the United States and one of the largest globally, Verizon. And so digital is something I feel particularly passionate about. So at the World Bank Group, to get very specific with you, we have delivered social programs to 250 million more women and connected 300 million women to broadband and expanded access to capital for 80 million women. That's by 2030. That's what we're aiming to do. And that's in conjunction with organizations like Reliance Geo, who is giving affordable mobile care to all and making sure that everyone can have widely accessible internet service. That's where we start. That's not where we finish. When you talk about collaboration, it's going to take all of us, whether you're working for Estee Lauder, whether you're working for a nonprofit, whether you're working as an entrepreneur, all of us working together to think about what are the jobs of the future and how do we get women included in that? How do we build it? Basic infrastructure, ecosystems where women can thrive. That's where the World Bank Group comes in. That's where our expertise and our knowledge bank comes in. But that's where all of you come in too. No matter where you're sitting in the world, no matter what industry you're working in, it's about creating jobs, meaningful jobs for women, and making sure that we don't leave women whose household requirements require them to also do it digitally from not receiving access to it. That's where we start. It's not where we finish.
Thank you, Lauren. And I think now building on that point of partnerships, I'd like my next question to go to Nagina. Partnerships are at the core of the SDGs. In fact, it's one of the SDG goals. Based on your experience of working with governments and NGOs, what models of cross-sector collaboration have proved most effective at advancing women's and girls' agency?
I am working with the United Nations Population Fund. It's the UN agency focusing on women's health and empowerment and well-being, and also on the empowerment of the young people. I think the question has an answer in itself, because if we're talking about partnership, the model that works is where different actors and stakeholders are actually partnering and working together. And we are diversifying that base, and we are, of course, working with the government, because really, if you want a really sustainable, long-term, at all levels impact, you have to work with government. And at the UN, UNFPA, we work a lot with the Ministry of Health and different states. But then we're also engaging the IFIs, DFIs, philanthropists, private sector, and community, of course, because the empowerment of women cannot be done for women, for girls. It has to be done with them and by them, with their voices, and not only at the solution, the table, but in the design of those solutions, what works for them in that particular community. And I mean, India is, of course, a huge country, a lot of different groups of populations there, and the same solution might not even work in the different places, so there is no cookie cutter here. And this is where the government helping us to connect with also different layers of communities and the partners there to make sure it works and bring the evidence that it works and share knowledge. So the ORF is helping us with the South-South cooperation, because there is so many best practices and technology and solutions which can be shared with others in similar communities, in similar countries. You do not have to reinvent the wheel, but you can adapt and adjust so it works. And now when we see that also private sector is really growing, and there is a lot of intentional efforts to bring also social impact from the private sector, and this is really encouraging because they're also putting more and more women's health and women's well-being and needs in the center of that. And we are saying that the world is not designed for women because, unfortunately, until now, a lot of the solutions excluding us in healthcare and science and technology and AI, a lot of the solutions are still biased. but we see a lot of intentionality to change it. And none of us, we represent all here very different actors and stakeholders, but none of us can do it alone. And this is where the cross-sectoral collaboration approach, and then really we're all united by a passion to make a change, and that brings us together, and collective efforts can really shift the needle.
Thank you, Najina. And I think that cues very nicely into my next question, which is for Nancy, touching now on some of the role of the private sector. Nancy, you've led some very successful purpose-driven campaigns in the private sector at Estée Lauder, from Mac Viva Glam to enterprise-wide ESG leadership at Estée Lauder. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how the private sector can act as a catalyst for scaling women's empowerment, whether through investment, inclusive workplace policies, or brand-driven advocacy. And I know you work in India, but you also work around the world, so we'd love to have your insights.
Well, very excited to be here, and I say amen to all the previous speakers in terms of the great points that have been made, and congratulations, Vanita, to you and the Reliance Foundation for all the great work that you've done. We're a luxury beauty company. We have actually been in India now 20 years. 14 of our brands are there, and we are very optimistic as we continue to expand in the country. One of the things that we've seen generally is that retail is really a gateway to the middle class, and actually one of our fiercest leaders, you're talking about other countries, in our Tom Ford brand started at a counter at Clinique in South Africa. And so that is the way we approach our work also in India. We have been there with Mac Viva Glam, which is basically a program where you buy a lipstick and we give 100% away. And we've given away $7 million. And so we're very optimistic about the power of the consumer. And one of the things that we see again and again, particularly in India, is that our consumer cares that we care. And what we've tried to do also is not only enroll consumers, but also our staff. Over the years, we've given some great grants to Pratham, which is a terrific program, second chance program of allowing women to take a second chance at taking the test to go to high school. And what we've seen again and again is, as a business, what we bring is our understanding of entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurs like Mrs. Estée Lauder, but also our understanding of the need for employment. And so what we've tried to do as an actor in the space is to leverage that. Some of the great programs that we've funded in Brazil, there's a girls' education program called Unibes. It's an after-school program to keep girls in high school. And what we've done actually is also allow our retail teams to have their daughters come to the programs. And that we see as part of the recipe of what we understand. There's other programs that we've funded throughout India, but we're very, very excited. And also just wanted to mention that as a multinational company, very admiring of the Indian government's requiring that companies like ours give 2% of their profits, which absolutely should be the case. And as we move forward, I think what we can all work together on really is scale, because what's not missing is great ideas. What's missing is scale. And so we believe that particularly through some of the work that we've done around breast cancer and HIV and AIDS and education, we can scale. The other is, and lastly, is we funded a group called Plastics for Change in India. And it's an informal economy where women collect plastic and they sell it. I think the other is we as donors need to accept and really support alternative economies. And in many ways, women are parts and driving those economies because they haven't had opportunities in the formal economy.
Thank you, Nancy. So now I'd like to turn to Lourdes and start to talk about some of the challenges. The voluntary national reviews that we were talking about earlier in the day stress the importance of integrating women's empowerment into development planning. What have you found of some of the persistent barriers in us actually achieving this? And how do you think that mechanisms like inclusive governance, better financing models, or digital infrastructure can help bridge these gaps, especially as we're trying to surge towards achieving the SDGs by 2030?
Thank you. I was very impressed by that sentence that the ambassador said at the very beginning, saying that we need solutions that are not worse than the problem. And I wanted to give you two examples. The first one, I had the privilege to be part of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women. I had the privilege to participate the first year that the program was launched. And I can tell you that the results that year were mixed. So I was in charge of Brazilian entrepreneurs, a woman who was doing catering. So then we would pair the woman, because of course one of the first things is to say, these women need coaches. So the coaches was myself, then we partnered with another business school in Brazil, Fundação Dom Cabral, and also managing directors, female managing directors at the Goldman Sachs office in Sao Paulo. So these women would fly to Minas Gerais, to the Northeast, to coach women entrepreneurs. Goldman insisted that we had to measure the improvements, that we had to be able to measure success, and that the program was going to be successful. And I believe now, a number of years later, the program has been a success. But they were really disappointed, we all were, by the precarity of these jobs, by the precarity of these women selling food in the streets, by the precarity of these women. They had a baby and someone had to take care of the baby, or they had to take the baby with themselves. So then at the end of the year, the conclusion by Goldman was, you know what, we cannot take care of women at the bottom of the pyramid. We have to go up. And the up was going women who owned shops, so they were already formalized, and sometimes networks of shops. So for me, of course, all did volunteer jobs. So we volunteer our scarce time, and we all felt a little bit disappointed. The second example that I'm going to give is that I'm married to an Indian, so then in 2 weeks, I'm going to visit my father-in-law, who is very old. And then one of the pleasures that I get is I get my chai from a lady who is a widow in Goa. I go to Goa with 2 daughters, of course, precarity all over, but she has the best chai you can ever drink. Excellent chai. And excellent pakoras. Well, the pakoras for me a little bit too spicy. And also the pakoras, she wraps them in journal newspapers. So what does she need? The first thing, she's completely illiterate. So she needs literacy. Second thing, I heard the secretary talking about how AI in India can translate different languages, no need for text because she's illiterate, but just by talking. And so I can talk to her because I cannot talk to her. Third, branding and of course hygiene. She's very clean, but still she could improve, and still she needs branding and saying, you know, I sell the best chai in Goa. There is no other one. And I've seen her cooking. So I think we need to find solutions for the bottom of the pyramid. In India, still, the number of women who are illiterate is very high, around 15% or more, and in rural areas is much higher. So we need literacy. We need skills on the job. This woman has no time to go to school. So we need schools that they can train her, and the lady in front who is selling pots and pans in the streets is sitting on the floor. So we need on the spot training, we need scaling, we need marketing, we need branding, and of course we need financing as well. So I think we have to find solutions, and I would like to bring here the program in Lima, Peru. In Lima, Peru, at some point, all the stalls in the street were forbidden. But then the people were asking for them again. So then there was a major training program by the government, and the women, because in many, many cases are women, were brought back. And that definitely, number one, they were able to go to formalize their jobs, and definitely that is, once you formalize a job, in general, the jobs keeps being formal. In general, the people have a bank account, they can be paid by digital payments, etc., etc. So that would be my 2 cents to say, let's look for solutions within the Global South that make sure that the informality becomes formality, and that these women in particular, number one, let's go to the basics, literacy. Number two, training on the spot in the street where they are working, finding a small group of women that can over there, because the woman arrives at 8 a.m. and leaves after dark, so she's exhausted and she cannot go to school. So the school goes to them and helps them in the training.
Thank you, Lourdes. Now, building on the point about, what can we learn from across the Global South, I'll turn to Audrey next. What role do multilateral institutions like OECD and others have in helping facilitate this knowledge exchange between countries like India and other regions with similar women empowerment goals?
Thanks for the question, and hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Well, gender equality has been a cross-cutting priority at the OECD for a long time, and I think the multilateral world has a lot to contribute to advancing women's interest in digital transformation and beyond. My part of the OECD is science, technology, and innovation, so I'm very focused on gender disaggregated statistics on women and girls' participation in different aspects of digital transformation. And in the interest of time, I won't get super statistical on you, but I will tell you that there's a lot of barriers that remain to equal participation. I think we all know that women and girls participate less in ICT-related fields. They publish less. They they represent less in terms of degrees in STEM related, and the list goes on and on and on. I will refer you to the Going Digital Toolkit and our AI Observatory. Both of those platforms have a wealth of comparable data, cross-country comparable data, some of which is broken down where we can by gender on different aspects of participation in digital transformation. And I think, we can always start these conversations with, we need better visibility into what is happening. We know there's a gap, but so as a multilateral focused on evidence-based policymaking, it's sort of my job to also say we need better visibility into what women and girls are experiencing. But we know there's a gap, and we know that there's ways to close it. I want to pick up on the literacy issue, because we also know empirically that for digital literacy and digital transformation, basic numeracy and literacy skills are critical. You can't just leapfrog over that and put that aside in terms of digital adoption. So that is work we do with our education directorate. There's work we do with our finance directorate to unpack some of the issues women face relative to access to financing. And we know, for example, in the startup space and in the AI space, since everybody's here talking about AI, although I appreciate this conversation is more broad, that that women's participation is particularly low. It's increasing in the SMEs and startups, I think, from about 8% to about 12% in the last year, but it's still low. And so we've got a lot of work to attract women and girls into those fields. So I guess what we can contribute is our knowledge base, our statistical base, our data. The way that we gather these data is so critically important, and provide a platform for countries to learn from each other. The amazing work being done in India, just the overwhelming amount of programs that you spoke about was just so inspiring. Sharing that with the community of countries, regardless of how developed or underdeveloped they are, I think everybody has something to learn, and so it is our job to bring people together and make those experiences shareable, and so that we can learn from each other.
Thank you, Audrey. So I think now I'd just like to do one more quick fire round. I know we had one more set of questions, but we are running a little short on time, but would love to hear a little more from each of you. Perhaps starting with Mr. Malik, I mean, you were telling us about the great work that has been achieved, through India's use of DPI and digital and initiatives like the Poshan Tracker. What do you think that the rest of the world can learn from India on some of these initiatives?
Yeah, the first thing that I think one can kind of generalize for learning is how to exclude people who don't deserve that kind of benefit. That always there are free riders and people who want to sponge on the system. So that actually makes those who are eligible much happier, if the ineligible people are taken care of. So this is what digital technology can do at a scale humans can't. A lot of subjectivity comes and a lot of other issues would come. So what we are doing in our tracker application, Poshan Tracker, Nutrition Tracker application, we have put in biometrics also, facial recognition system. And now maybe it's difficult to believe, we have already achieved 87% of our target. We just started a couple of months ago. And we have been able to take care of around 10 million beneficiaries already. They never came for FRS, because they either were not deserving or they were not interested in those services. So not only that, the money was saved, but those who actually, deserved to be there, they came, they got the photo, the thing, from the Aadhaar stack, verified, electronic KYC happened. And next time, whenever they come, anytime, facial matching would happen and the benefits would be given. And then SMS would go on their registered mobile number. So the power has shifted from the local bureaucracy of Anganwadi workers, etc., to the beneficiary. The beneficiary, unless they come, actively participate in the activities of the Anganwadi and then receive the benefits. It may be nutrition, it may be health measurement, it may be advice, it may be home visits. So unless they get an okay and their face is verified and then they get to know about it in their beneficiary module, which is available in their own mobiles. So it's a lot of change of power. So transparency and power asymmetry has been taken care of. So it's not the bureaucracy, it's the beneficiary, the women who is driving the program now.
Thank you. And I think next I'll turn to Lauren. Your work also very much focuses on communications. And when we look at women's empowerment, social behavior change is very important. Any insights you'd like to share on the roles of communications in helping challenge gender stereotypes and promote more positive narratives around women's leadership?
Yeah, I know this is a quick fire round, so I'll keep it quick. But listen, it starts and ends with the work. And so to be an effective communicator, to build media plans and media and marketing materials, it has to start critically with the work. And so we need women in real leadership roles, in real jobs. We need to make sure that we are reaching women from across the global south and globally. And then, and only then, can we tell authentic, real stories. And so for me, the media is a piece of it, but it's the end, not the beginning. We have to do the real hard work now. And that's why jobs are so critical. It's why we need to build ecosystems and a digitally inclusive world where women can participate, share their own stories that are truthful and authentic.
Thank you, Lauren. And Nancy, you've spoken to us about your experiences of working across multiple different countries. Any insights that you'd like to share that large organizations and funders should bear in mind when they're working in different countries to help drive women's empowerment?
Well, I think the solutions are there on the ground. And I think one of the mistakes sometimes big companies make or big foundations is they come with a theory of change. And one of the things that we've seen through our Potham program, for instance, is it's about jobs. And so some women want to do vocational training, some women want to go back to school. And I think that's the most important piece. And what we've done is have our employees keep us honest and keep us grounded. But I do think the solutions are on the ground. And what we need to do is find great people, great organizations, and get out of the way and help them scale.
Thank you. And Lourdes, on the question of scale, I mean, you work across Latin America, India, and beyond. From your experience, I mean, what do you think are the critical enablers that we need to think about when we're trying to take women's entrepreneurship to scale on the global south?
So I think these best practices that come from the global south, what I mentioned, for instance, the example of Lima, Peru, that can be translated very easily to all the global south. So, and again, this bottom-up and best practices on the ground. We have to learn from the innovation and the entrepreneurship. What are the best practices from these women themselves? And then scale it and definitely go back to basics. As I said, literacy is a requirement for everybody.
Thank you. And Najina, in your work, I mean, you've talked about how the innovation pipeline from R&D to financing can often overlook women's needs. What steps do you think stakeholders need to take to ensure that gender equity is embedded at every phase of design and development?
I'll say 3 steps. And first, invest in female entrepreneurs. And we are so proud to say that Indian actress and entrepreneur Kriti Sanan just joined UNFPA as the global ambassador for gender equality and will help us to amplify and multiply those voices. We invest in female-led companies, including in India, for example, SmartScope, which is AI-powered tool to detect cervical cancer, one of the leading causes of mortality, that really brings the women's voice from the beginning. Second, invest in the overlooked research. The R&D in women's health receives only 1% globally for women's health beyond oncology. That is like way too low for half of the population. So we need to invest more in R&D in the research. And the third, scale what works. And as you mentioned, Nancy, also that a lot of the solutions are there already and they're community-based and we don't have to bring from somewhere else, but we need to find what works and scale it. And those solutions can really bring a lot of impact, bridging science and the scale and impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Nijina. And then, Audrey, I'm going to give the final word to you. What do you think are some of the key areas of action for OECD cooperation over the next 5 years as we're trying to achieve the SDGs by 2030?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just going to highlight two things because there's a lot. But from a policymaker's perspective in government, they have to have a strategy for women and girls in digital transformation. It has to be a core part of the national digital strategy or their AI strategy, whatever the digital strategies are, and governments have lots of different ways of looking at digital, but women and girls need to feature in those strategies, and they have to focus in key areas. Education and skills is a big one because that leads to jobs, and I think everybody has said that's really a big part of the key. But one thing we haven't said, so one thing is education, skills, jobs, and the other is I want to just end on a safety note because I think another barrier we see to women's participation in the digital economy is threats to their safety online. And those threats are growing. There's lots of data that show that. And so as policymakers and governments start to really focus on the solution space for that area, whether they're technological solutions, policy and legal solutions, I think that we're going to be watching very closely the relationship between some of the change that will hopefully come from that and women's ability to participate in the digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. And I think that cues in very nicely to just the very final section of this session, where we're going to invite 3 very quick interventions from 3 experts in the room around women in the age of AI. So I'd just like to invite each of them just to speak for 1 minute, just to give their perspective. Kat Duffy, Senior Fellow for Digital and Cyberspace Policy, CFR.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for this wonderful panel. We're at a transformative moment, and AI is not a vertical, it's an all-purpose technology. And one thing that we have learned over the years is that technologies are excellent at scaling possibility. They are also excellent at scaling damage. They are excellent at scaling marginalization. And so we have a moment right now where we are making decisions about how AI will exist in the world, to look very carefully at the systems and the societies that we are laying this technology on top of. No technology is neutral because no society that technology operates within is neutral. And so as we think through deployment, as we think through use cases, and as we think through potential, I urge us all to confront that which we have not achieved with honesty and with optimism, and think sincerely about how we use AI and its transformative potential, not only to scale existing systems and existing possibility, but to recreate a future that will have more gender equity, that will have greater equity among those who have historically been disenfranchised or who have been marginalized. And in so doing, in actively attempting to course correct for that as we build the technology out, we will be using AI to ensure a better future, not just for women, but for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Next, I'd like to invite Sarah Ahmadian, founder of Anar VC.
I can sit here if you want. I wanted to just add, thank you. I just wanted to add that as we know, there are more users of ChatGPT in India than United States, and is all based in American culture, and nobody's talking about that these days. I'm really passionate about making sure that we have policies in India and different countries that when teenagers and kids are using ChatGPT, they are not using American culture. Right now, they are getting educated based on American culture, and we really need to make sure that women, our knowledge, our indigenous knowledge, also the knowledge of our grandmothers and all those things is going to be in ChatGPT when people use it in India.
Thank you. And just finally, Claire Sibthorpe, Head of Digital Inclusion for Mobile for Development from GSMA. You can come join us on stage, and Kat as well, please come join us on stage. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think, AI is here, it's big, it's going to be transformative, and it has huge potential to benefit women. But I think the reality is also that, you need to be online to be benefiting from AI, and there's still a lot of people that we need to connect, and they're disproportionately, unconnected, disproportionately women. So unless we, also focus on getting digital inclusion for women, we're really not going to kind of see that benefit. And then once women are online, we have to think about the issues around some of the biases in the data. We have to think about some of the safety issues and all those issues, as well as the real potential that AI has for women, and to really address some of the needs that they have, very specific, targeted applications, dealing with some of the language issues and local language. So there's huge potential, but we do need to get the women online, and we do need to then also consider some of these sort of biases and safeguarding issues to make sure we are realizing that potential.
Great, thank you very much. And so I think we could carry on for longer, but we are standing between everybody and a beautiful lunch downstairs. So just a very big thank you to all of the panelists and to the three experts who joined us with their interventions. Thank you very much, everyone.